Paul, also from Israel, which is amazing. And hi, Beth. And I think was that Sharon Buckman who made an appearance for a second? Okay. Yes, hi Sharon, welcome. Welcome, good to see you. Jeffrey is in the room, executive director in the room, checking up on things. Who, me or him? That's the question. No, he doesn't. Okay, let's go. Gil, if you can share the bracha, everybody in cacophony. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
Enu
melech
melech
haolam
olam asher
asher kitashana
shana
b'mitzvotav
b'mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
tivanu
la'asot
so
v'tivrei Torah.
Torah.
Blessed are you, divine source of the universe, who has given us Torah to soak into. Amen, amen. So today's parsha is Bo, and it starts with God saying to Moshe, Bo el Pharaoh, like come to meet or encounter Pharaoh. And it's a very interesting locution. And what I wanted to
We're having trouble hearing.
Oh, that's not good. That's Asher Chaim who's speaking? Gil, you can't. What?
I can, yeah, I hear fine, but there's a microphone if you need to. I'm hearing fine, but you can use the microphone that
It's
they set up.
very low.
Oh,
Now we can't hear you at all. We see your lips
yeah.
moving, but you don't hear anything.
Muted.
Oh,
No, I'm not. No, because I don't. Am I muted?
Are you?
Oh, good, Jeff. So this
Hear
is.
the tapping?
Yeah.
yeah, it sounds.
Well, then you should hear me too.
Yep.
Do you hear me okay?
Can you hear this? Can you hear this?
Yeah, I hear fine.
Okay.
No, we can't hear through that microphone.
Oh, so maybe use the
And now
handheld one.
there's more background noise.
You can't hear through this microphone. And what'd you say about that?
Oh, that's better. That's better.
That's better?
Yes, but it's still like. Can you get closer? I guess it's.
Okay, that microphone is interfering for some reason.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we should. Jeff, should we?
Leave it over there. Just don't plug the next.
No, I know, but how? Okay, should we?
No,
shut
that's
up?
better.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
You're better.
So there was sort of competing audio systems that got in the way of each other. So hi, Elizabeth. I see the rest of your family's here and you're there. Interesting. Okay. So as I was saying, God says go to Pharaoh, and it's different language that's usually used, and especially the mystics are interested in, like, what does it mean to actually encounter Pharaoh? Like, what does that mean? And I was curious about. Good morning. No, you're good. What I'm curious about here is, like, so what does it mean to encounter Pharaoh either in the world or within ourselves? And I called it knowing the impenetrable heart, encountering Pharaoh. So in order to do so, I wanted to get to know Pharaoh a little bit. So who is Pharaoh? So I'm going to go backwards and then land in our parsha to, like, look at different aspects of who Pharaoh is. Is the project clear? Yeah? Okay, good.
Who literally? Like the name?
No. What is the character of Pharaoh? Good question. What is the character of Pharaoh? Who are we dealing with? Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Ram.
Okay, I'm going to screen share, and if for some reason that doesn't work, Gil.
Still not hearing well. The volume's really low. A lot of us are saying that in the chat.
I believe you. You don't.
I can hear fine, so I don't know.
Okay,
I'm glad that one person is hearing fine. I've got my volume all the way up and it's too dim. I'm going to try headphones. I don't know what to do.
Oh, no, this is frustrating. I'm so sorry. We have the tech expert Jeffrey Kahn with us right now, who is troubleshooting. Does it help if I?
I invented the internet.
Okay, Jeffrey, and he's not actually exaggerating. He was part of that founding movement, I believe, if I believe him. I'm not sure I believe him, but that's the story. That's how the story goes, and other people believe him, so I respect those people. Oh, Victor's to the rescue. They don't hear me online. How's it going now, Asher Chaim?
Still very dim.
Dim, it's dim.
Oh, maybe
I-
it's,
I can hear you.
I'm so glad that others are not having this experience.
Well, some people are and some people are not. I don't know what to say. I could also try, Victor, the audio, turning on the audio on my computer and see if that's better. Would that?
No, it will be an echo.
I know, but we'd have to shut off that sound.
there we go. Nice. That should do it.
Victor to the rescue. Jeff may have invented the internet, but Victor to the rescue.
Rabbi's voice talking to Victor is great.
How's that? Oh yeah, is it better now, everybody?
Yes, now it's much better.
Okay.
It's better. Okay, yay! Yay, Victor! Thank you, Victor. Okay.
We'll call Victor, forget that.
Yeah. Poor Jeffrey. He can do other things. Okay. All right, here we go. So we're gonna dip into our parsha for a moment and then go backwards, as I said. So Exodus 10, this is how the parsha starts. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, God says to Moses, Yud Hey Vav Hey says to Moses, Bo el Pharaoh, go to Pharaoh, or come meet Pharaoh. Ki ani hichbarati et libo, for I have hardened his heart. That sort of really disturbing question about hardening Pharaoh's heart, which we will deal with a little bit later, so let's not deal with that now. I know it's disturbing. The et lev avadav, so not just Pharaoh's heart, but the hearts of his servants. Why? So it's very clear why, at least in the text. Internally, there's a reason, which you might not like. Lama'an shiti ototai ele bikirbo, that I may display these my signs among them. In other words, you'll see there's a crisis of knowing God. They don't know God, right? The one of the leitmotifs or leitmotifs in the text, in the Exodus narrative, is actually knowing. And the problem is that God isn't known, and God needs to make God's self known. So because language isn't working, there's a whole communication system that's not working. We talked about last week, right? Moses can't speak, Pharaoh can't hear, the people can't hear. The communication vehicle becomes the plagues. Now that doesn't explain away the justice issues, so we're going to put those on the back burner. We probably won't be able to explain them fully, but I'm just giving you a frame for this. Tony, do you want to make a very quick comment?
Brief comment.
Can people hear Tony online?
My Franciscan friar friends,
He's a friar. Go ahead.
fledgling friar,
Fledgling friar.
fledgling Jew friar,
Okay.
tell me that God sometimes, or maybe frequently, allows for an evil, partly because of the free will thing, partly because it can always make a greater good out of it.
Yeah, that's actually, that hurts a little bit, thinking about that.
Yeah.
Especially thinking about massive hurts in the world.
Well, but that.
But,
that's
well,
only
that's not-
if
we
you
can't have a
think of God
conversation.
as parent away somewhere far away. If God is within each of us, then.
I see. Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to get more into theology later. So.
Sorry, forgive
No,
me.
no, no. No reason to forgive. That was interesting and all good. And God's going to make something good out of it. Even if it's bad.
Exactly. Even if it was a little imperfect.
Exactly. Okay. Good. I'm going to go with that. All right. So when we meet Pharaoh, what we meet is not knowing immediately, right? So look at the beginning of Exodus, or not the very beginning, but close to the beginning. So at the beginning is like, these are the names, and it names like all the people that, the Israelite family that comes into Egypt. And he called Nefesh Yotzei Yarach Yaakov Shiv'im Nafesh v'Yosef Hayab Mitzrayim. The total number of persons that were of Jacob's issue came to 70, Joseph being already in Egypt. And then, right, so Joseph was in Egypt and the rest of the family joined him, as you remember from back in Genesis. a whole different story. That's the family story. Now we're in the national story. Vayamat Yosef v'kolcha v'kol hador hahu. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. Uvnei Israel paru v'yishritzu v'yirbu v'yatzmu b'ma'od ba'od v'timalei ha'aretz otam. But the Israelites were fertile and prolific. They multiplied and increased very greatly, so that the land was filled with them. Vayakam melech hadash al Mitzrayim asher lo yada et Yosef. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. So the question is, and we'll look at the Talmud and some Midrash in a moment to see, like, what does this mean? What does it mean that he didn't know Joseph? What's the issue? Why do we care that he didn't know Joseph? Right? So we're now in the Babylonian Talmud tractate Sotah. And it says, Vayikam melech hadash, and there arose a new king of Egypt who knew not Joseph. So there are two positions of this, on this. Rav u'Shmuel, Chad Amar. So Rav and Shmuel, two Amoraim say, two, lived sort of in a later time in the Talmudic era, said, Chadash mamash. So the king was actually a new king. V'chad amar shenit chadshu gzerotav, that his decrees were new. In other words, he wasn't a new king, but suddenly he had different kinds of decrees and policies. Manda amar chadash mamash, and the one who said, like, oh, he's really a new king, as it says, chadash, new. Umanda amar shenit chadshu gzerotav, and the other one that says that his decrees were renewed. Delak ketiv v'yamat vayimloch, because it's not written and he died, and there arose a new king. So for that position, they're not taking the new king, that phrase, literally. They're saying he only renewed his decrees rather than one king died and a new king arose. Asher lo yada Yisaf dahava damei kaman dela yadei leklal. So this king who knew him was acting like he didn't know him at all. So there was a shift in approach. There was a shift in leadership. Is that clear? So one says, like, oh, rose a new king, he didn't know Joseph. Just as it's written, the pshat, right, the literal meaning. The other one's saying, like, no. It's the same king, but he's, like, forgetting who Joseph was. Okay, so now let's look at the Midrash on this. Asher lo yada Yosef, who didn't know Joseph, klomar haya kafui tova. So to say that the problem here is that he's in denial of the good or ungrateful. Ki'ilu lo hikir Yosef, as if he didn't know Joseph. He knew Joseph, but he's like denying the good that Joseph brought to Egypt. And what was the good, if we remember? Joseph saved a whole region from famine. He also enslaved the population, there were issues, but he saved a whole region from famine, right? That's big, right? And it's like essential and primal. It's all about food. Okay, shachach kol chasidav shehevi kol hakesed beita paro, and he forgot all the kindnesses or the goods that Joseph did for Egypt, that were for Pharaoh, that he brought all the money to the house of Pharaoh, which he did because he sold grain, v'kana otam, admatam leFaro, and he acquired all their lands and them themselves as like serfs. V'akshav kafar b'bagadbo, keshem shekafar b'Yosef. But now he denied him and betrayed him. And just as he denied Joseph, kach kafar bivoro, and just as he didn't know or denied the good that Joseph brought, he was also denying the good that God brings. Shaharei amar lo Yosef, because if you remember back when Joseph was interpreting the dreams, Joseph said, Et asher Elohim oseh har'eh et paro. For Joseph said to him, what good is about to do, for what God is about to do, he has shown to Pharaoh. V'hu amar lo yadati Adonai. Yet he said, I do not know the Lord. Arurin hen harishaim shehen kafui tova. Cursed are the wicked, for they are ungrateful. Kofrim b'mi shehu oseh imahen tova. Denying the one who does good for them. Okay, so it's not that they didn't, it's not that the Pharaoh, according to this interpretation, did not know Joseph, but did not know and was ungrateful for the good that Joseph brought. Okay. So let's look at what Shai Held says about this. Aaron, would you mind reading?
The Midrash goes on to imagine God according to be careful lest you be ungrateful to me, for one who is ungrateful cannot accept the kingdom of heaven. At first glance, God's statement may seem like a threat, but it is really a description. If we are ungrateful, if we don't acknowledge the reality of just how much has been given to us or achieved by us, we will actually be incapable of worshiping anything but ourselves. It is not surprising then, let's see, what is this? Pharaoh's statement is the most...
So it's not surprising then that the prophet Ezekiel...
that the prophet is... okay, that... Yeah, it's cut off. Pharaoh's statement is the most dramatic denial possible of the fact that he is dependent, that as powerful as he is still a creature created by and dependent on God.
So what he says in Ezekiel, I think you skipped that line, or maybe it's cut off. The Nile, what he says in Ezekiel, we'll see that below, the Nile is mine, I need it for myself. That's how his Pharaoh is imagined in the eyes of the prophet Ezekiel.
He has problems that only he can fix.
What's that?
He has problems that only he can fix.
Yeah. Another Midrash imagines Pharaoh disdainfully announcing, I have no need of God, I created myself. I myself am God, Pharaoh implies, and I therefore have no obligations to anything or anyone besides myself. I mean, life imitates art, doesn't it? Gratitude and ingratitude are ways of being in the world. The former has the potential to pervade and enrich every corner of our lives, and the latter has the power to metastasize and poison every aspect of our being. Pharaoh's ingratitude permeates his entire world and drives his life in endlessly destructive ways. Yes.
Wow. So, yes, this has nothing to do with what's happening in the world.
Not
just
at
to be
all.
clear. Okay.
The meme of self-care has no relevance to
Okay.
it.
All right. We're going to go on a little bit, and then I will open it up. And, you know, I just want to say that sometimes I'm a little skeptical or suspicious of the sort of the meme of, you know, everyone saying like, oh, I'm grateful, I'm grateful, I'm grateful. Because I feel like then people don't actually acknowledge what's hard. Right? And that's equally important. And yet, you know, I agree here with Shai Held that like the power of gratitude and like knowing what you've been given as opposed to the arrogance of acting as if you know, it's all about you, right? As opposed to being dependent on a million factors, including your legacy and the education your parents afforded you, or a million different things, right? That's, you know, that recognition is essential. You know, it's like a third generation Harvard student is like, you know, the possible arrogance of that, you know, as opposed to saying, well, you know, it's part of my family's script. That's why I'm here. Right? It's a very different kind of
Malcolm Gladwell
acknowledgement.
makes that point very well in some of his books.
Excellent. I'm glad that Malcolm Gladwell. Excellent. At least Malcolm Gladwell bought that or got that. Okay, great. So let's look for a moment at, and I'll get comments when I finish sort of this point, all the texts that relate to this point. Okay, so here's the, I'm sorry. Here's the text which talks about Pharaoh by the Nile. And it says, this is Shemot, Exodus 7. Vayomar Adonai el Moshe, kaved leb paro me'en l'shalech ha'am. So God said to Moses, Pharaoh is stubborn, he refuses to let the people go. So remember that Pharaoh starts off as hardening Pharaoh's own heart, and then at some point God takes over with that, like hardening or strengthening Pharaoh's heart. Lech el paro baboker hine yotze hamayma v'nitzavta lekrato al sfat hayor. So go to Pharaoh in the morning as he is coming out to the water. So this is probably what Ezekiel is like riffing off of. V'nitzata l'krato al spat ha'yor v'hamateh asher nehpach l'nachash tikach biyadecha. And station yourself before him at the edge of the Nile, taking with you the rod that turned into a snake. That rod, not just any staff, but that one. V'amarta elav Adonai Elohei Avrim shalachani elecha lemor shalach et ani v'yavduni b'midbar hinei lo shamata. And say to him, the eternal, the God of the Hebrews, sent me to you to say, let my people go, that they may worship me in the wilderness, but you have paid no heed until now. Okay. So let's see what Rashi says about this, this standing by the water. Hinei yatsa hamayma lenikavav, to ease himself. But nikuvim are literally holes, the porousness that the human body is, right? So to like release himself, to go to the bathroom. And what the Midrash and the commentary agree about Pharaoh is that he did so in secret. Because he made himself like a god. And he said, like, oh, I don't have to go to the bathroom like all other human beings. And he'd wake up early and go to the Nile and go to the bathroom, so no one would know when he was going to the bathroom or that he went to the bathroom. So he hid his basic humanity. And as we know, there's a bathroom blessing in Judaism, which is really central. So instead of hiding it, it actually makes it into sort of a sacred recognition moment. And it says, Baruch atah Adonai Elohim b'chaolam asher yatzar et ha'adam. Blessed are you, God, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who formed man b'chokhmah, with wisdom, v'ara vo nekavim, and created with him openings and hollows. Chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei kisei kvodecha. It is obvious and known in the presence of your glorious throne. She'im yipatech achad mehem, o yisatem echad mehem, I efshar lehikayem. So it is obvious and known in the presence of your glorious throne that if one of them were ruptured, or if one of them were blocked, it would be impossible to exist. Right? So that's recognition, right? Radical dependence on the sort of health of our bodies. Right? And if there's one moment that one of these holes isn't working, we're in big trouble. It would be impossible to stand before you even for one moment or 1 hour. And then it ends, Baruch atah Adonai rofeh kol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh and performs wonders. It's funny because a friend of mine is actually going through surgery right now. Not right now, a couple days ago. Sorry, it was yesterday. Because, one of these basic things was not working. Right? Okay, so let's see what Aviva Zornberg says. Pharaoh constructs himself as a god without needs. In the midrashic expression, he is eino machnis ve'eino motzi. He takes in nothing and evacuates nothing. He neither eats nor eliminates waste matter. That cycle, depending on a vital traffic through the orifices of the body, is denied by one who claims to be above change, beyond the cycles of in and out, hunger and fullness, the vicissitudes of time and bodily state. This is the moment of neediness that he must hide at all costs. So I'm going to do 2 more short pieces, and then I will open it up. So there's this sort of fantasy, right, that the Midrash and Aviva Zornberg are sort of painting in Pharaoh that he himself is a god, right? And he has no need of the outside world, and he's hiding all vulnerability. So I read this really interesting piece yesterday that was so resonant that I had to bring it in. It's from this publication called Arc, Religion and Politics, and Henry Michelson says, I grew up in a social, I think it says in the essay, he's 22. I grew up in a social media culture that has created a perverse form of voyeurism in which individuals become a god unto themselves when they entered the digital realm. I used to use apps such as Instagram and Snapchat to stay up to date on my friends' lives, silently checking their stories and posts, accumulating information on them from the comfort of my solitude. Using social media to maintain, quote unquote, connections ended up placing me at the center of a universe ultimately curated, partially by choice, partially by algorithm, precisely for me. I felt omniscient about the people in my life, as though I had become a god of my own siphoned off world. And I read that as I was sort of, putting this together, I'm like, whoa, it feels deeply true, that at least on social media, online, we're sort of, always sort of putting together a world that's precisely made for us and not encountering the friction of other human beings, right? Not having that face-to-face encounter. Okay, finally, a poem by Stephen Dunn called Ars Poetica. Maybe from the beginning, the issue was how to was how to live in a world so extravagant it had a sky, and bodies so breakable we had to pray. Okay, so let's take a break here. So this is all about Pharaoh in denial of what he's received and in denial of his own vulnerability. So coming to know Pharaoh is coming to know either those parts of ourselves or those parts of one another, right, that are just sort of impervious to the world. Okay, so I see Amy has her hand up, and then Adel, yeah, and then Oswaldo in the room.
I've been studying with Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, and one of the things he says is that the reason that the Pharaoh did not know Joseph was because he was a Pharaoh that was from an invading army, and that that he only had his army that he could depend on. Now there's millions of Egyptians. They could have subdued the Jews, but he subdued the Egyptians. Now the Egyptians are in a caste system, like the Indian caste system. And the Jews didn't fit into any of the castes, the pre-existing castes, because the caste controlled society. So if they didn't fit into any of the castes, their caste, if they were a separate caste, was bigger than any of the other castes. So that meant that they could eventually, because they're segregated, could eventually cause him trouble and rebel against him.
Okay, so that's an imaginative sort of historical frame upon which to put around this scene that works. Thank you. Okay, Adel.
Hi, good Shabbos, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm off camera right now. By Pharaoh hiding, going to the bathroom, he is enslaving himself. Therefore, he enslaves others if he can't be authentic. And I recently had a friend who said that he is a god.
Really interesting.
Yeah. And I like to emphasize that, because he's made in the image of God. And I like to say, yes, we are children of God.
Thank you, Adel. And I think you're right. There's something about like not acknowledging, imagining that Pharaoh couldn't acknowledge his own body and had to hide that might have led to wanting to enslave other bodies. That's a really interesting connection. Okay.
Rabbi, just a second. Can you move the microphone a little closer to you? I'm getting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is that better, Gil?
I hear you fine, but let's see what the comments say, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, so Oswaldo and then Amy.
I want to take a little bit the opposite side.
Oh, let's put this.
Yeah.
Whose side are you taking?
Well, I almost feel sorry for this character, Pharaoh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, put yourself, I mean, now royalty, we have different perceptions of royalty and monarchy, but put yourself in this poor guy's world. He's raised in this totally compartmentalized world where he is perceived to be, he himself is taught to be as God. Imagine you're in a world where you're only allowed to speak a language that's not English, whatever, and you have to follow those customs, and suddenly somebody is questioning your concept of reality, you know. So, I mean, yes, I think Pharaoh in a lot of ways is us in the sense like, you know, when we're anger, when we're, you know, whatever the issues we have, the negativity that we face. But if we look at this guy, this poor fellow, I mean, his world is crumbling. He's just reacting, and because he has no concept of this reality as it is.
Absolutely, I think that's really helpful. And are people not hearing us, Gil? I can't stop to read the chat, but I see that something's not working.
I'm checking right now if anybody's if there's anything.
Okay.
I'm
So
hearing fine, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, so absolutely, and I think part of this exercise is actually to have empathy for Pharaoh, and you're on that track. Like sometimes we're stuck in a script that we can't sort of match with our own humanity and being, right? How do I do this? How do I live up to the expectations of me when I don't have those resources that I'm supposed to have? Absolutely, yeah. No, I think
if I could just have it, I could. We're in business, you know. I'm in business, you know. I'm always negotiating with people. If I see a character like this would be somebody so easily, you know, to deal with, because he or she has a particular world, and nothing outside of that world is, you know, you hit them in the face and it just can't deal with the reality.
so someone like that is especially brittle.
Yeah.
And can't deal with reality. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Amy, do you want to come right here, Amy? Yeah. And then I saw another hand.
The opposite of the opposite.
The opposite of the opposite. Isn't that the original?
I don't know. In getting to know Pharaoh, for me, it's how am I not like Pharaoh? It reminds me of Rabbi David's class of Maimonides, is it? What is God, what is not God? Anyway,
Yeah.
so I have a very hard time in open book when we start to empathize with bad characters, and I'm like, why are we spending all this time, especially when it's a male patriarchal figure? I think for myself it was a lesser figure. I'll have an easier way to do that.
So let me just restate what you're saying. So you're saying like this person has caused so much harm and done so much damage and violence in the world. Why are we even bothering to like have compassion?
Yeah, what's the value in it?
What's the value?
And
Okay,
we
great.
did it with Joseph's brothers. I remember the same, like, why are we making excuses for
So that's a really good question. Okay, so finish your point. And
So
then
my
I can come
point
back
about
for a moment.
gratitude and about is that the mental construct of saying I have gratitude is very different from the practice of when you can actually move into this overwhelming space where you feel something, and then you recognize, oh, this thing that I'm really, this sensation, that's gratitude, like where you recognize it from.
It's not just a cognitive idea.
Yes,
it's a feeling.
That's like an act as if, or like a mantra, but if you're praising and aligning with your divine and what you said, sacred recognition happens, then you're like, I think this is what gratitude is. That was the first thing. And the other thing I wanted to.
So let me just repeat that because I think it's worth repeating. So it's like, what is the bodily sensation that goes along with gratitude? Like, what is gratitude? Like, what are we actually feeling?
Yeah, what is it?
Great.
And then the other, not like, you know, the how am I not like, for me personally, if someone does something important for me in my life, forever and ever, they hold a space that I will never ever, they're always in that space forever and ever. In my personal life. Like if someone does me a solid or does something really important for me.
Oh, you hold that kindness.
I always, I'm always in a space of gratitude for that person. I don't forget that.
That's beautiful, and that reminds me of, there's in Exodus it says that God visits the sins of the parents on the children for I think 7 generations, but the kindnesses It's 1,000 generations.
Wow.
If I'm remembering the math correctly, which I might not be. So I want to address your first question, because I have some answers and they may not be satisfying. So your first question is like, why are we spending time trying to empathize with Pharaoh? So I will say there are at least 2 reasons and maybe 3. The first reason is because parts of ourselves we might have those traits within.
But would we see it? Okay, anyway.
Well, this invites us to pay attention.
Okay.
Right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is I believe that it's important to imagine every psyche there is in the universe. That's a task, that's a human task. You could not agree. And I remember, I read this amazing interview of Richard Dreyfuss, I think it was, who said, yeah, I would play any character. And the interviewer looked at him and said, oh, would you play President Trump? And he said, no. So we might have limits, like whose psyche do we want to enter? And this is sort of like, goes back to the beginning of the Parsha, like, is God inviting Moses to really go down deep and encounter the evil that Pharaoh is? So I saw that as the task of our Parsha, that our Parsha was inviting us to do that, and that I believe that we might do that and come up again enriched and empowered. And the last one is very purely strategic. It's like, know your enemy. Like, know your enemy. Like, know what you're up against so you figure out how to strategize.
Bring your enemies closer.
And perfect the world. Okay, now I'm really only...
Thank you. Thank you.
Tomas, it's so good to see you. Marla.
You're so shiny today.
I am shiny. There's a big beam today. Okay, Marla.
I lost my train of thought. No, thank you.
You had what?
I lost my train of thought.
You lost your train of thought.
But I found one.
No, you spoke right. Okay, Tomas and Beth and Juliet, and then right back to the text because we have a lot more to do. So, okay, but no, not.
Oh, into the thing.
Oh, and also someone asked me online to repeat something, but I don't remember what it was. So I hope people help Linda with that.
At the risk of sympathizing with the Pharaoh, because I really hear you on that.
You hear Amy on that. It's dangerous. Sure. I just want to acknowledge that. It is dangerous. And there are reasons not to. You might decide not to, and that's fine.
I try to do some pedantry in my own mind of like, okay, who's Pharaoh and who's Amalek? Because those are 2 different bad guys.
Oh, that's really important. So just spell that out for people who don't know who the characters are.
Oh, I mean,
who's Pharaoh?
I speak from measured ignorance, but Pharaoh is there are many types of baddies, and Pharaoh is malleable, alive, maybe more human, maybe more subject to frailty and folly, and has a kind of shared humanity even as our enemy. And then there is this acknowledgement that there is something other than that.
It's called Amalek.
And it's called Amalek.
Pure archetypal evil.
Yeah, after some other king who chased us, some other.
Well, it's a descendant of
the descendant, right?
Of Esau.
Of Esau,
and
right.
And the Edomite kings.
Right. So it's like an other. That is maybe even a step removed from a recognizable.
It's a different category. I think that's really important and helpful.
Yeah. And one would like to believe that even that is somehow redeemable, but I've yet to see that evidence.
There are texts we can bring to that question too.
In terms of just the royal personage and sympathy with the Pharaoh, like and slavery, like one of the strange burdens historically of royalty is also a loss of bodily autonomy. There's something called the royal person, which means that if you are the king, and especially if you're an absolute monarch like Louis XIV or Henry VIII or Elizabeth I, your body is no longer yours. Like it belongs to the state. So Louis XIV, like the Sun King, had to have his poop inspected every single time.
No.
Or if you were a queen giving birth, it had to be witnessed publicly so that the lineage could be attested to. Or even sexual congress in the Middle Ages had to be witnessed.
Sexual what?
Sex. If you were a king or queen having sex, you had to be witnessed by a bunch of bishops so that the bastardy was
okay, this is
like,
unbelievable.
So there's a loss of bodily autonomy, and even to this day with the British royal family, there's all sorts of weird stuff about your body is not your own. So to be absolutely empowered as a human being is also to be absolutely disempowered. right? To like lose dignity in this weird way.
Oh,
And
horrible.
so-
Thank you for that
yeah,
context.
So
Wow.
I
Wow,
think
wow,
there's
wow.
something pharaonic about
Wow,
that.
wow, wow. So let me also address what you were saying about Amalek and empathy. So there are texts about the genesis of Amalek is because I think it was the granddaughter of Esau, Timnah. I'm sure that Amy will know exactly what the progeny here is. So Timnah wanted to convert, and Abraham's family rejected her.
Right.
And that was the beginning of evil.
Wow.
And that's the evil that grew and became Haman eventually.
Amazing.
So that's fascinating. So there's a backstory, there's some empathy.
I mean, in my personal overshares, when I encounter Jew hatred amongst my progressive friends, in my mind, I always say to whoever I'm talking with, okay, are you a Pharaoh or an Amalek? Like, can I talk with you or can I just not talk with you? And mostly
that's really interesting.
Mostly I try to see everyone as a
That's
Pharaoh.
interesting.
But sometimes I
Okay,
blow it.
so as I said, only Beth and Juliet, I see new hands, but I'm not gonna take them now because I wanna do some more texts. Okay, so Beth and Juliet who've been waiting. And then wait, let me just say, Asher Chaim, hold on, says, Tomas, there's always the risk of anachronistic retrojection from British royalty into Pharaoh. I don't feel like that's what Tomas is doing. I feel like what Tomas is doing is sort of giving us some possible context for what it means to be royalty in the world.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so Beth and then Julia.
Shabbat Shalom. At the beginning of our Parsha, when we're told in English translation that God has hardened Pharaoh's heart, the verb there is kavod.
Correct, but I don't want to we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into hardening.
Okay, fine. But what I'm saying is, it's possible that one of the reasons he needed that done for himself is because of fear.
Yes.
You know, earlier on, we're told about how the Israelites are turning into this teeming mass, and that's what precipitates this decree about killing the firstborn and all that. And so there's a sense in which Pharaoh is starting to feel out of control and like he's got to put some clamp down on this situation. And
yes, and it's explicit in Exodus 1, right? Pharaoh says like, oh my God, the Israelites are going to team up with our enemies, and there is clearly a fear, absolutely. So the heart of Pharaoh, or the heart of this particular evil, is fear. Absolutely. I don't want to say that every time because I don't know, but yes, we can trace that back in Exodus. Okay, Juliet.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. I want to defend my husband.
Does he need defense? He made a beautiful point.
He did make a beautiful point. I'm making a joke. I think that understanding and empathizing with our enemies, all of our enemies, is the crux of all spiritual work. I mean, this is why we're doing it. Even as we are protecting ourselves, even as we're understanding that there are times when we have to protect ourselves, I think we still have to see everyone. I mean, that's the point. That's what Shai Held is always talking about in his books and in his and what he talks about as a rabbi, that we need to see every single human being as made in the image of God.
So
only when we do that will we make progress in this world. If we keep saying, oh, there are Amaleks in the world, you know, I'm not saying that pure evil doesn't exist, or maybe it's mental illness, you know, if I'm thinking about certain people who are in power, without naming names. But I think that it's really important, like this is the spiritual work. Seeing everyone, understanding where people are coming from, whether it's, you know, and also taking measures to protect ourselves.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. And not only protect ourselves, but so the trick then, at least in my mind, is how do you empathize and then take a really firm stand?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, great. So we're going to go back to our text, and I will take some more comments later on. Okay, let's see if I could find the text. One second. I think this is it. Aha. Okay. So, not only does Pharaoh not know Joseph, but Pharaoh doesn't know God. So as we see in Exodus 5, Vayomer Paro, Mi Adonai Asher Eshma B'Kolo. Who is God that I should listen to God's voice? Sorry. L'shalach et Yisrael. What does it say? L'shalach? I can't see. Let's see. L'shalach et Yisrael lo yadati et Adonai v'gam et Yisrael lo ashaleach. So who is God that I should heed him and let Israel, or heed God and let Israel go? I do not know God, which is exactly the problem. Nor will I let Israel go. And it's interesting that there's something about knowing God and letting go are two interconnected actions. Okay, so we're going to go on, and now we're going to land in our parsha and go forward a few verses in our parsha than before. And okay. Asher Chaim, do you want to read these few verses?
I'm a little wobbly of voice today. So
Oh no, I'm sorry. I forgot about your laryngitis. I apologize. I'll read it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, so Vayomer Adonai El Moshe Bo El Paro. So then God said to Moses, go to Pharaoh. Ki ani hechbareti et libo, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his courtiers. That lev avadav lama'an shiti ototai ela bikirbo, in order that I may display these my signs among them. So the hardening heart is, God, or the Torah is very clear about this. Why? So that God can display God's signs, especially because language is not working, right? Ulema'an tsaper be'oznei bincha uven bincha et asher hitalalti b'Mitzrayim ve'et ototi asher samti bam v'yadatem ki ani Adonai. And why else? So that you have a story to tell for generations, right? To your children and the children of your children's, like this is, right, the Seder, right? Where the Seder is, the Seder of the telling. So that you can tell the story in the ears of your children and grandchildren and generations to come. What I sort of did, or the sort of a story I caused to unfold in Egypt, and my signs that I put amongst them, v'yidatem ki ani Adonai, in order that you may know that I am God. So the whole goal of the story, and we're leading to Sinai, right, is that the Egyptians and the Israelites will know that God is God. Have that. This is back to what Amy said about embodied knowledge, like really knowing, understanding that God is God. Okay, so then it goes on. We don't have to read that right now. I did want to read Aviva Zornberg here and there. Okay, who would like to read? Anyone? Any readers in the room? Readers in the room, or anyone feels like reading? Reader in the room, or online. Marla. Okay. As if human autonomy ceases.
Well, it's really quite a theological problem, actually, which the Midrash pays a lot of attention to, and that is that if God hardens Pharaoh's heart.
Oh, I'm sorry. So let me just give you a little context, and also you need a microphone. Can people hear Marla, or does she need something?
I would move the microphone to as close as possible.
Oh yeah, that microphone in the middle of the room. That's right. Thank you.
That would be great.
Thank you, Danny. Okay. So this is from a Krista Tippett on Being interview with the literary analyst, or literary sort of interpreter of the Torah, Aviva Zornberg.
Well, it's really quite a theological.
And I'm sorry, and they're talking about God hardening Pharaoh's heart. Okay, now go.
Well,
Sorry, Marla.
It's really quite a theological problem, actually, which the Midrash pays a lot of attention to. And that is that if God hardens Pharaoh's heart, then obviously Pharaoh's not responsible anymore for his intransigence. Why should he be punished? It's God who is interfering with his vital organs, and the classic direction to answer it has to do with reaching a point of no return, that one can make oneself obdurate and closed to all appeal from the outside world to such a point that, in fact, it's as if human autonomy ceases to act altogether. One no longer has the power to backtrack. And from that point onwards, I think it's a kind of figure of speech then to say that God hardens his heart.
So great, thank you. So if we look at the literature a little bit differently, and say not why does God harden his heart, but why did people write the story this way? Right? Why are people using this language to talk about a hard heart? So if we think about some of our human characteristics or addictions, right? We are subject to compulsions that feel like they're outside of our agency. So it seemed to become Pharaoh's hardening of character to respond that way.
Dissociation may be the better psychiatric word.
Okay, dissociation.
Better than addiction, which is a more surface world. Dissociation really gets to that we are clueless about all kinds of things that are in fact going on.
Like when we are hostage to bigger forces, but we're still doing the act, but we feel like we're not. Like that experience. Thank
Is
you.
there an adaptive equivalent to the defense of dissociation? Like, is there a kind of positive version of that?
That's a great question.
Oh, maybe being in ecstasy.
Yeah.
Maybe what?
Ecstatic, like when God sort of, the ecstatic experience of like having God just
By the way,
take you
only
over.
ecstasy that penetrates our hardened hearts. There's plenty of ecstasy that serves spiritual bypass.
Okay, well, you know what?
Sorry.
People are going to lose us.
Sorry.
So, but it's a really good question. Who's really in charge of what we do? Is what you're raising and when? Okay. Can you read the next passage, Marla?
Perhaps Moses recognizes in himself something of the impassive dignity of Pharaoh, whose apertures are sealed, who neither listens not, increasingly speaks when Moses makes his demands. As the Midrash evocatively puts it, Pharaoh neither takes in nor gives out. He is never seen either to eat or to excrete. Denying his human needs, his existence in the rhythms of human time, Pharaoh constructs himself as the emblem of an illusory self-possession, is immune to others as he is to his own needs and to the life and death within him. As Rashi says, he makes a god of himself. A perfect circle like the mythic Ouroboros, the snake with its tail in its mouth, he is impermeable. I am my river, and I have made myself, he declares in the words of the prophet Ezekiel. When Moses confronts Pharaoh, he recognizes his own impenetrable conditions. To express a new ambivalence, he uses the repulsive imagery of his foreskin sealing his lips, an excess, a too much of total knowledge. Less is more. The foreskin is to be removed, a blockage cut away so that Moses can gain access to his own vulnerable humanity. Only so will he gain access to his new brother's hearing. A desire is born, a desire to be born into language with all its inherent losses.
So this kind of sums things up. It brings us forward and raises the question of who are we when we come into contact with Pharaoh? And who Moshe became, or the experience of Moshe of himself, is a sense of having uncircumcised lips. And that's, it's just interesting because every person, right, evokes different parts of us. So this is who Moshe became when that happened. Okay, so I want to look a little bit, I think briefly at Pharaoh's vulnerability then I'll take a couple comments, and then we will conclude with a poem. So let's see. So in between, I think, the locusts and the darkness, Pharaoh flips out, or not flips out. Pharaoh does something that Pharaoh does, I think, 3 times, which is kind of change his mind and sort of acknowledge his own vulnerability. So now we're looking at verse 16. It says, "Vayimaher Paro l'kro l'Moshe u'le'Aharon." Pharaoh hurriedly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Omer, Chatati l'Adonai Elohechem v'lachem." I stand guilty before the Eternal, your God, and before you. V'ata sana chatati ach hapa'am v'he'etiru l'Adonai Elohechem. Forgive my offense just this once, and plead with the Eternal, your God. V'he'etiru l'Adonai Elohechem yaser me'elai rak et hamavet hazeh. And plead with the Eternal, your God, that this death but be removed from me. And look at the next verse. Vayetze me'im paro v'etar el Adonai. So he left Pharaoh's presence and pleaded with God. So Moshe actually pleaded with God on Pharaoh's behalf. Wow. Like, wow. And this goes back to, like, Amy's question, like, should Moshe be doing that? And Amy's clear. Amy's like, no. But that's a question that the text is really raising. So now I'm going to stop. So that was a lot. So what did we see of Pharaoh until now? Pharaoh doesn't want to know. Pharaoh, I see your hand, Wendy, and there's a few people that are before you, but hopefully we'll get to you. Pharaoh doesn't want to know. Pharaoh hides Pharaoh's vulnerability, and then Pharaoh sometimes reveals Pharaoh's own vulnerability. So that's what we've seen of Pharaoh in terms of coming to know Pharaoh, and that impenetrability, right? The denial of porousness really, porousness really stands out in my mind. Okay, so I know, let's see, there were a few hands from before. I'm going to ask people to be brief because we're coming in for landing very soon. So I see Brenda and go to gallery. I think there's another hand online, but I don't see it now. Okay, Brenda, and I know Wendy also. And if there's time, Tomas wants to do a repeat.
So one way of looking at Pharaoh is in the more spiritual way is that we're seeing his characteristics of not knowing God, of his arrogance, his pride, his unfeelingness. It also represents what we all have within us, that we all think we're gods to some extent, that we can control everything around us, that we're invulnerable to some extent. And so when we look at Pharaoh, we can also say, where does that live within me?
Absolutely. That's one of the approaches I named at the beginning. Absolutely. So, and you know, that also can be dangerous business, right? It can be very uncomfortable to do so. But thank you, Brenda. Okay, Marilyn, did you want to say something? You had your hand up before. Okay, we're going to go to Wendy in the room.
Yeah, let it go. I'd rather hear you talk. Yeah, I let it, let the people go, let you go on.
All right, we have some time if you decide you want to say something, okay? Okay, Wendy. Wendy in the room.
What's interesting in last week's Parsha, when we had the beginnings of the plagues, and God was hardening Pharaoh's heart, that information was not known to Moses. It's only in this Parsha.
Which information? I'm sorry.
That God was hardening Pharaoh's heart. In the previous Parsha, God was hardening Pharaoh's heart, but never made a declaration of that to Moses. And it's only in this Parsha that he makes that declaration. and also.
What difference does that make? So why is that important?
Because I think it's unfair for Moses not to have had that information when he's, protesting on behalf of the people and thinking like why is God working against me? Right. And so you also have to think.
Interesting.
Why is it that God feels the need to harden Pharaoh's heart? Is he afraid that perhaps his kindness would show through, and let the people go sooner? And so why does God feel the necessity, if in fact
Are you
Pharaoh,
asking that, or are you answering that?
No, I'm saying I'm asking, if in fact Pharaoh is so evil, why does God feel the necessity to harden his heart?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what comes to me at this moment, the text was the Torah is very explicit. Like, God is doing this so that Pharaoh and Pharaoh's people and the Israelites come to know who God is. Now, that doesn't sit well because a lot of people are suffering and dying.
Right, and so in God's plan, the release of the Israelites will only come after the 10th plague. And I think hardening of Pharaoh's heart prior was to ensure that it got to the 10th plague, that amount of time. And also, the other thing is, we don't know how long these plagues lasted. We don't know if they were a day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years. It's
right. We don't know how time's working.
Right.
Exactly.
It's unknown.
Exactly.
It's unknown.
So let's just talk about how we're interpreting the text. So the question is, are we treating this text as if it, quote unquote, happened, as if it's history, or are we treating it as literature? So if we're treating it as literature, what comes to mind when you're speaking is that, what many people have compared this story to the process of giving birth, right?
The what?
To giving birth.
The labor.
Right? To labor. And it's interesting because it talks
Something
about.
You two would know a lot about.
It talks about, Tony. It talks about, the redemption of the firstborn, right? So if it's akin to a process, sort of a literary equivalent to a process of giving birth, because the people are born on the other side, then their timing is everything, right? And which labor pain is going to be your last, right? When is the moment right? Okay. Anyone else want to? Tomas. Aaron. Aaron hasn't said anything. Thank you for reminding me about Tomas. Okay.
Just one thing about why Moses would ever defend Pharaoh. Moses is a palace insider. He's raised in the court, so this is, he knows this guy, maybe, and
according to the text, that Pharaoh died. But if you think about what?
He knows the scene.
He knows the scene. But if you think about Prince of Egypt, it's such a beautiful retelling of this story as a kind of contemporary midrash, because it presents Moses as sort of as his brother becoming the Pharaoh, and also the dynamics within the family. So it's a wonderful sort of retelling of what was at stake for Moses in this whole story. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Tomas, you are on.
Briefly, I just can't resist one more architectural fun fact about, two princes of Egypt and Moses recognizing Pharaoh and himself. I just learned this a couple of weeks ago in Archaeology News, that the archaeology of tents and ephemeral structures and temporary pavilions is really difficult because it's like wood and fabric and it doesn't last like stone. But there have been new discoveries, and some of the pharaonic war tent, which is the kind of temporary palace or structure that the pharaoh would have taken as he pursued the Israelites into war. And of course, the amazing thing about the war tent, it is the exact mirror of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. You can see where historically even the template might have been taken from. Same rectangle, same geometry, same setup, except instead of the ark, of course, it's the throne of the pharaoh. And so you can kind of imagine a sort of precursor of the Mishkan, like chasing the Israelites, and then they re-signify it. So just, mirrors and others, and the divine and the humane finding each other.
So this gives new meaning to the fact that when the Israelites were slaves in Egypt, they were avadim leparo, right? They were slaves to the Pharaoh. But when they're free, they remain avadim. They're avdei Hashem, right? They are servants to God. Like there's still service, but the object is different, right? Which makes all the difference. I also want to go back for a moment to what Amy was saying, because I feel like it's really important to know that if someone hurt you, your job is not to empathize with them. And I think that's what you were trying to say, and I don't know if I captured it.
Yeah,
in its
I didn't get
fullness.
to the personal, but yes, absolutely.
Your job is not to empathize. That's not your emotional labor. Your job is to protect yourself.
Well, your job is both, ultimately, I think.
I
Personally.
think, well,
That's mine.
let's let that stand for a moment. There's a time for everything.
Yes.
I want to recognize and honor
Yes.
that if you've been hurt,
True.
that's not your emotional labor.
Amen.
I want to let that stand.
That's
Thank you.
Okay, everybody, we're gonna do.
I have one brief theological thought.
Go ahead, and then we're gonna end with a poem.
Which is...
Well, we gotta amplify your voice on that.
Thank you. Which is, all of this seems to stem from something I was thinking on the way to synagogue this morning, which is, on the one hand, it's all in our own hands, as in, only that day dawns to which we are awake. Thoreau. And yet, it's all in his hand. He's got the whole world in his hands. How can both be true? And in a way, this whole discussion stems back from the paradox of both those both being true. That he's got the whole world in his hands, and yet it's also up to me. That's all.
Thank you. So, okay, I just tried to, thank you. And which one is the illusion?
Maybe they both
Or
are,
they're
and
both
not
true.
remember
Yeah.
illusions. Both.
Okay, now you can see. Okay, we're going to end with this poem, and it's good because we're now competing with music. Even 1 hour by Rabbi Sharon Cohn Annisfeld.
Sing it.
What?
Sing it. Sing it, girl.
It's not a song. Arise and give thanks for the holes and hollows in your own body that make living possible, that make standing possible before you. Consider, though it is uncomfortable, the blood, water, and waste, the spit, salt, and tears, everything that flows in you, through you, from you. And imagine, just when you think you've understood what would happen if one unseen opening inside you were to close or to come apart, then say these words, Afilu sha'achat. It would be impossible to stand before you for even 1 hour. In the morning, I walk along the ocean bluffs with my mother as she recites her private psalms. I just can't get over the mountain here. Oh, I so want a dog. This doesn't look familiar at all. Look at that adorable child. Everything is harder now, but she's determined, and so she doesn't notice until it's too late that her knees are buckling. I am disgusted with my legs, she says, as they give way, and she bends closer and closer to the ground. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, who heals us all and works wonders.
Who is that? Who's the poet?
Rabbi Sharon Cohn Annisfeld.
Is that somebody you know?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.
תודה רבה.
Wishing you all wholeness, completeness,